Ho, 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 and merry whatever you are currently celebrating. I took a little bit of a break for Christmas and for my own mental health, but I'm back for one last video from Nashville, and that's going to be the worst things I read in 2020. This is going on a lot on BookTube right now, people putting up their worst of the years. I'm gonna try and make this like my anti-fantasy awards. I'm gonna make the fantasy awards this year bigger, better, more powerful than ever. But let's just have a nice, easy little chat about what I didn't enjoy getting through this year. I haven't actually watched any other BookTubers' worst of the year video. I don't know if I'm doing this right or if I'm doing it differently. Just know it's intentional, whichever way I'm doing it. But I broke this into categories because I didn't want to do a straight like top 5. I wanted to, again, make this like a opposite of awards ceremony and get into why I didn't like specific things and get into the specifics of why you cannot like something. Because you can still even respect it and be like, hey, that wasn't for me. And let's go ahead and kick this off with the first category, and probably the most obvious, if we're being honest, that's gonna be taste. This is for a book where I can totally understand why it has the audience it does, right? Like you can look at it and be like, yeah, 100% there, just not for me. The most blatant comparison you have in probably everyday life is music, where you're like, yeah, that took talent to make, I get the appeal, but I don't necessarily like it. And that's where I'm gonna go ahead and hand this category to Six of Crows. One of my most disliked reviews, also filled with a lot of people who are understanding in the comment sections. This kind of YA is just not for me. And it's directly tied into my two-part series of why I don't like YA, which is something that many people still take wrong to this day, because literally the point of those two videos was like, I get it, I respect it, I don't think it's as bad as a lot of people say, but here are the exact reasons why it's just not for me, clearly spelled out, and try and recommend some stuff, maybe within the genre, that I would like. That was taken very negatively for some reason. Anyway, Six of Crows is a YA story to its core in nearly every way. My biggest issues here were it felt like underdeveloped characters, forced romances, and a rather predictable plot with somewhat weaker prose. All of that kind of came together to just result in me not enjoying it at all, while totally getting how it could be in someone's top 15 whatever of all time. And I do think the author is extremely talented, hence why you're likely to see another book of hers, Ninth House, actually in probably the upper echelon of books I've read in recent memory. So this is a situation where, yeah, it purely comes down to taste, and Six of Crows gets this award. I don't know what I'm putting here in editing, but look at it, it's for the taste. Did I put a tongue? I feel like I'm gonna put a tongue. Next is gonna be something that's a bit less of a forgiving category, and that's going to be, it's just weak sauce. Whatever it was, I just feel like the author didn't put in the effort to fully realize the vision and give me, the reader, what I really wanted from the concept. This could actually be a good idea, but for various reasons, it just doesn't deliver and satisfy as a reading experience. And for me, this is going to be Hounded, the first book in the Iron Druid. A lot of people give this series flack for feeling like Diet Dresden. Well, it arguably does feel that way. It's unfair to completely discount a series because it has a similar concept to a well-established series. If you think that's a problem for the series, I want to remind you that a huge percentage of the fantasy genre is just retreading Tolkien intentionally. So I have no problem with Iron Druid on that premise. There are some fans of the series who do deny that it has similarities to Dresden, which you do drugs, I assume. But it wasn't about that for me necessarily. It was about a protagonist who just lacked the personality needed to really ensnare me. History and world elements that were just built up and never felt that enticing, and a plot which felt extremely just either convenient or already done. There was nothing in Hounded that really grabbed me by the collar and said, go, read more, you'll love it. And with a lot of people in the comments section saying the series does not get better, in fact it gets worse, I'm definitely not gonna be continuing down the Iron Druid road, though I don't necessarily hate that I read this one, because it's a great example I can point people to for, yeah, you can have a wonderful idea, but you can't just ride an idea carrying a story. You have to really put your heart and soul into it, and as a reviewer, subjectively for me, it just didn't feel that way. Next up, we have Gordon Ramsay's least favorite category, the bland category. It's bland! It's bland! This is for a book that just washed over me and I didn't feel anything from it. I wanted to enjoy it. I looked for all kinds of interesting things to feel like, oh, look margarita is delicious. There's a spice here, and I'm gonna remember that. But what's most notable is I remember almost nothing from this story because it did just kind of pass over me like a nothing burger. And that's unfortunately going to be Girl in the Stars by Mark Lawrence. The follow-up to one of my favorite series I've read recently, The Book of the Ancestor. The Book of Ice was off to a shockingly lackluster start for me. This was not a horrible book. Mark Lawrence certainly delivers on a lot of his character work and his prose, yet I couldn't find the soul. Book of the Ice has a pretty huge hurdle to overcome in my opinion after this first entry, because the first book's job in a series largely is to give the reader a reason to come back through neat ideas, punchy characters that are going to emotionally get you invested, and all of that is going to make you as the reader come back and want to finish the story that's obviously not super well cleaned up and wrapped up because it's the first in a supposed series. Unfortunately, the only reason I feel compelled at all to come back and read the next book here is because I'm already a fan of Mark Lawrence and I have some faith that he will then kick it up and actually make Book of the Ice have that thing that'll make me want to come back. I'm just not getting it though from this first book. I am not returning this series because of the quality of the first book, which is not a good thing. What's most surprising in this situation is if you look at Book of the Ancestor, or really any series by Mark Lawrence before this one, the first books, hell, sometimes even the first lines are enough to just catapult you as a reader into the vision he is portraying. Yet, I never got it here. I don't know what happened. Something was just lost. I do still consider myself a fairly large Mark Lawrence fan, and I'm interested to see where this one will go from here. And it's a negative to say the thing that's most compelling me about Book of the Ice so far is seeing if it'll be able to recover. Next up, most disappointing. Something a lot of people wanted me to check out and was right in that lane of fulfilling an objective I actually had for reading this year, and that was actually a great foreign epic fantasy. And I had a pretty large number of people in my audience saying you have to check out Immortals of Meluha by Amish Tripathi. Unfortunately, I picked this up and what greeted me was just technical problems and a story that I just didn't very much so enjoy. Now, this did grip me in the sense that I hadn't experienced a fantasy world like this before, and the fact that it was pulling from all these mythologies and histories that I personally am not familiar with, it did inspire me to look into these things, which is a huge boon in the book's favor. But if I am looking at the material within the pages, oh, I was not enjoying that. And what really surprised me is after I put out that review, I had quite a few people from India commenting like, oh no, that's not the best Indian epic fantasy. You shouldn't have started there. So I'm still trying to give this other culture's epic fantasy a go because it's one I really want to get into, but I've yet to find that perfect entry point. I'm going to, don't worry. All this comes together though, unfortunately, for me to give Immortals of Meluha the trophy of lost potential. I'm pleased to say though it did represent the culture it was portraying well enough and show me there is certainly a rich tapestry to be pulled from for other series we get into that I will be continuing this effort because, wow, did that feel different than reading another Tolkien clone. Now for the quickest category yet, worst adaptation I watched this year. We're leaving the written medium and going into some visuals. Easily, handily, no question, it goes to Fahrenheit 451, starring Michael B. Jordan. Love that guy as an actor, love this book. What was done here to Ray Bradbury's vision is absolutely atrocious. Even Fahrenheit 451 detractors of the book will probably come in and be repulsed by what was actually put to the screen. No. If you're in a writer's room and you're like, hey, we're adapting this classic, what should we do? Let's add a subplot about bird DNA. Kill that person. Kill the person who suggested that. They don't need to exist anymore. Did I just advocate murdering a real life person who probably actually come up with that idea? A little. It's a joke. Next up, we have most unnecessary. And we all know who's taking this award. Recently, I read and reviewed Ready Player 2, and I didn't even get into all of the just terrible, terrible sides to this book. If you'd like to see a more thorough, in-depth analysis from a reviewer I very much so like and respect, check out Amanda the Jedi's video where she really gets into like spoilers, nitty-gritty, how that book fundamentally fails. But I just want to capstone me consistently dunking on this book over the last couple of weeks by just saying it is the most blatant, obvious cash grab I have ever seen from an author. The lackluster effort is embarrassing, and the only reason it's not the worst book I read of the year is because of the next category. New Low, a category I hope I never have to include in a video like this again, because I wasn't aware you could be traditionally published with a book of this quality. We all know what this is going to be, Fit Sorceress. I have a rant review where I go off unlike any other rant review I've ever had, and it earns it. I also left out about 15 to 17 minutes of footage of me more thoroughly just going through trashing this material. This includes the main villain's actual plan, which is about like exterminating a populace and repopulating the world with like incest. It just doesn't make sense. Nothing makes sense. If Ready Player 2 is a blatant cash grab trying to exploit the success of an existing franchise, Fifth Sorceress comes across like someone who had no actual like love of the fantasy genre, just thought like, I can crank out a trash fantasy book. I'm better than these fantasy authors. I can do this and make a bunch of money. And then they realize after putting this out, no, you cannot, because after doing even more research, after a ton of people sent me stuff about Fifth Sorceress, yeah, this guy was just widely panned, and it's seen as such a massive failure that it's held up as an example by other authors to look to of how there were mistakes within the publishing industry after the success of several other series. It is overtly homophobic, sexist, and just hateful in several ways. People misuse the word offended very often online. I am actually offended by this book and how it portrays sexual assault on men as not a serious thing. I don't endorse judging authors by what they write, because they can write from the perspective of characters they don't actually believe in or back. But no, this book is very much so written in a way from a perspective where you can tell the author is endorsing and believing the ideas he's putting forward. And I don't say that lightly. Fifth Sorceress is the worst fantasy book I've read. It's the worst book I've read. And I will reiterate one thing I said in that review. If I wrote that book, I would be deeply, deeply ashamed. And to everyone involved in the process of putting that book, from the editing to the publishing, they failed their job. It is poorly edited. The publishing around it obviously failed hard. It was something they tried to just like force success to. It's like when you see a studio try to like force a pop star to be famous, and then they just end up like a drug addict on the street because no one cared about their soulless music. Yeah, that's Fifth Sorceress, except somehow more vile. Yeah, I said I was gonna take off my reviewer hat and just get like my personal thoughts here. I'm gonna put that back on because I feel like I'm gonna cross a line if I did not already. So that is the new low category. And yeah, I feel like I'm kicking someone who's down. I don't feel that bad. But we have one positive category here. One category of, I want to give this another go. This is the possible redemption. There's a book I read very early on in this year that I DNF'd. It's the only book I've ever DNF'd on the channel, and because of that, it feels like a stain. And that's Nevernight. And a lot of people have told me since then, you really got to give Nevernight a go, give it another shot. It's a good story, maybe you just weren't in the right headspace. And that's very fair. And I'm always open to being wrong in a review. I'm not some egotist who's gonna go crazy and be like, everything I say is right. Though on the flip side of that, please, well, here's a skit. Yo.
Oh, hey.
Just wanted to say, love the last review. 100% on the money.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, it was a good book. It was a good book.
You're the man. You're the man. It's like my thoughts come out of your mouth hole.
Kind of weird to say, but all right. Yeah.
Like what you said about the main protagonist in that one scene, 100%.
Yeah.
It's a king right here. It's a king. It's a king.
Please stop.
I just want to know, when are you going to review Sword of the Dragon Throne? I just want to know.
Oh, I already did. I wasn't that much of a fan. You okay?
The ego on you, man. It's just like clearly all got into your head. Like, wow.
It's okay if you disagree.
No. It's like you get final say, right? Your opinion's fact on the series. Like, that's how you put it out there. It's how it felt to me.
I never said my opinion overruled
The
anyone.
relationship and representation at the core of that book meant a lot to me. So you're saying that's invalid? You're saying I couldn't feel that? You're saying I didn't feel it?
No, I even praised that specific relationship and representation in another video. It meant a lot to me because I have
I'm going to tweet about how hateful you are. Hashtag so hateful.
Why?
All my friends are going to retweet it. They're going to like it. It's going to be all over you. It's going to be the new way people see you.
Can you at least tag me?
What?
You know, I can engage, try and contextualize, respond.
And break the narrative I'm trying to paint about you? Hell no. Oh God, the ego. So I'm going to reread Nevernight early in 2021 and give my full thoughts on that for a more quality review, because it did take place in a time where most of my reviews were not awesome. So that is my worst of the year, and it even has a little bonus category there. But what if I told you we have a bonus here? I'm happy to say we do. Coming in after his third surgery, recovering extremely well, we have my father to talk about a side of the worst of things, that's how I'm gonna phrase that I wasn't gonna cover until now. Transition.
I don't read many physical books lately. I guess it's my attention span or something. I do most of my reading either while walking the dog or on my bicycle out in the country with my AirPods in full transparency mode, of course, so I don't get hit by a farm truck out in the boonies. But lots and lots of Audible books. Redone most of The Wheel of Time this year. I've done all of Dresden, probably do Dresden again, and all of Sherlock Holmes while riding my bike. And I started with this wonderful free version that's available lots and lots of places, but the narrator just bothered me, and I am a huge Sherlock Holmes fan and have passed that along to the sons. So decided to just go back and get legit and pay Audible for the Stephen Fry version. Oh, loved it so much, going through all of Sherlock for maybe the, I don't know, 5th or 6th or 7th time in my life, probably more than that. So my worst of the year is not the best reader of great books. Whatever book it may be, it's always worth getting the best possible reader.
Performance matters a lot, so pony up.
What he said.
And so that is the worst of 2020 for myself and my father. So I hope you guys are having a fantastic holiday season, and I will see you back in the regular studio starting Tuesday.